Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the Brett and Matt Show. As always, he's Brett, I'm Matt, and we're going to get into what happened with the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. It was a pretty exciting weekend of football. Didn't quite turn out the way that we wanted it to, but
The NFC screwed us, man. I got my picks right. Don't get me wrong, but it's not
it
the
was
teams
bad.
I wanted to win. Yeah.
So with that, we'll jump into it. So first game of the week was the Chiefs and the Patriots, and the Chiefs brought in the best winning streak in the NFL at the time, and no one. I watched the whole game, and the Patriots they kind of just didn't run the football at all. they literally just threw the ball every play. Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like Gronk had a pretty big impact, I felt like, on the game. Edelman was targeted a lot.
Yeah, he had 100 yards.
Patriots did have, I felt like, a fair amount of drops. There was one throw where Brady tried to get James White crushed, and that didn't look like it was going to end well. But ultimately, the Patriots, were able to win, and you just kind of wonder how the Chiefs almost came back. You just kind of wonder how they would have been if Macklin wouldn't have gotten hurt the game before. Yeah.
Well, did he do much in this game?
No.
Didn't he get hurt? I don't remember.
Go ahead.
As you say, Jason Avant's hands. The guy can't run. Never really has been a great runner, but that dude can catch.
Yeah, yes, he can. Made some big catches for them.
The biggest problem that I saw with this obviously was like that final drive for Kansas City. Like, you're down 2 scores and you're like still huddling. Like they didn't hurry up at all. And Doug Peterson said he was the one calling the plays there in the second half. And the reason that they took their time is he was afraid to give Tom Brady the ball back. You're losing. You have no choice. You have to go fast. Otherwise, you're not going to get a chance anyway, right? So they score, and then what? They kick an onside kick or whatever, but then they leave themselves with almost no time.
Yes.
Assuming everything worked out great. So that's a pretty sketchy play call decisions, and I wonder how the Eagles fare. I think they did in their coaching hire after hearing that sort of explanation. They probably don't actually change their mind at all, but just think it's kind of funny. We can get to that in a second too, by the way, because I think that's interesting that they hired a guy that worked for Andy Reid after,
canning Andy Reid. No, I agree. In fact, you know what? After we get through these playoffs, we should touch on some of the coaching, because I don't think we've had much of an opportunity to talk about that. Honestly, don't really have a whole lot more to say about this game. I think most people thought that the Patriots would win, and they did. Tom Brady in Foxborough, even with a suspect offensive line and, a questionable defense at times, you just kind of figured he'd find a way to get it done. And sure enough, the Patriots advance and move on. The game we will probably spend a little more time on, so the Packers in Arizona. And, I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of the Packers, considering that they got their ass handed to them in the regular season by Arizona. Really, that we beat up on a bad Washington team. So I really wasn't sure how legit we were going to be against a really good team. And honestly, I think the Packers played pretty close to their best game. Obviously, to play in overtime at the end, Julius Peppers doesn't follow his responsibility, leads to Fitzgerald catching in the ball and running down the field, which pretty much sealed the game for them. But you look at that whole game, Randall Cobb goes down early, and everyone knew that I think Aberdarius was going to be a more important piece into the offense. And then once Cobb went down, all of a sudden Jeff Janis also had to step in and be that guy. And I thought those guys made some pretty nice plays for Rodgers. And I saw a little bit of the old Rodgers, like be able to run around and buy time and sling the ball and find someone open. And it was really interesting. The play that Cobb got hurt on was a pretty incredible catch. That obviously wasn't a catch, but
it didn't count. Yeah.
But it was a pretty sweet catch, and they ended up calling it back. And then a few plays, it might have been that same drive, Rodgers ended up throwing what could have been a pick six.
That was maybe the dumbest throw I've ever seen him make. It was similar to almost the one he made against Arizona in the regular season. Just threw it right to the guy in the end zone. Like, what do you?
I mean, I understand like him and James Jones. They have that chemistry that where like he trusts him. Maybe to make a play or something, but he just wasn't there. And Peterson catches and just racing up the sideline, and all of a sudden, a flag bailed us out. And so I thought that was an interesting turn of events. Another takeaway I thought from the game was I did not think Carson Palmer played good at all. Thought he played really poorly. Had a couple of really bad interceptions. The one he threw to Demarius Randall, I remember watching the play, and I'm at a bar with some buddies and a bunch of random people, obviously, that I don't know as well. But, like, I actually got a seat at the bar. And so we're sitting there, and I was watching it. And before he even, like, I saw him eye up, and right as the ball, like, releases his hand, I'm like, that's an interception. And sure enough, like, he just floated it. Like, I was like, what are you doing?
That was the one in the end zone, right?
Yeah, to Demarius that Randall picked off. It was like, plain as day was going to be short. I mean,
and you're right. Palmer did not have a great game at all. He even threw what should have been probably even 3 more picks. Now Shields dropped at least the heartbreaker, there at the end. That may have been probably would have could have won the game. Because didn't they end up scoring on their possession?
They did. That's the drive actually where they scored off the deflection.
Oh my God, the deflection! Right, another great play by was that Randall in the slot?
It might have been, yeah. Could have been.
He knocks it down. Unfortunately, instead of knocking it down, I guess he knocked it up and over, and there happened to be a receiver behind them for a touchdown. So, I mean, I'm not going to blame. I know a lot of people want to yell, and they were yelling like during that final possession because they did let Larry Fitzgerald get super wide open on that play. We ended up scooting 75 yards. But for the most part, again, the defense, like it has for most of the season, played pretty well. I mean, they held the highest scoring offense to 20 points in regulation.
That's what I said.
That's really good. You need an Aaron Rodgers-led team to score more. Unfortunately, without Jordy, without Randall, and then without as often as we yell at the guy, Devontae Adams. I mean, that's their top 3 guys that are in practicing with the number 1 unit all the time. Then you get Aberderis, who is a twig, and then you get Jeff Janis, who doesn't know how to run anything other than streak routes down the field, and that really limits the offense, And then even when we opened up holes in the running game, my God, Eddie Lacy, yeah, you had a 61-yard run. I think you and I would have scored on that play. The dude is really fucking slow. He is slow, and it looked like he was walking 61 yards.
Yeah, I mean, all the injuries kind of piled up, and I gotta say though, I really felt like even with the injuries, I thought Coach put us in a really good position to try and win the game. And Packer fans want to get on Mike McCarthy and are upset that he didn't go for 2 instead of allowing the game to go to overtime. I'm just gonna tell you right now, if he goes for 2 and he doesn't get it, he's gonna get roasted for it. And then so he ends up, saying, okay, we'll go to overtime. And his defense played good most of the game. Like, there's no reason to think that we're going to give up a 70-yard pass play to get, to have the Cardinals get down. Like, there's no reason to think that's going to happen. So I think he made the right move. I understand, like, the idea of wanting to go for 2, but if you don't get it, I think I would rather go to overtime personally, but I mean,
Right. I mean, you go for two in that exact situation. I think the conversion rate on 2 point conversions on average is like 45-ish%. And then, in overtime, it's a 50-50
I think
coin
it's
flip
about
whether you get the dub.
actually about 50% who ends up winning in overtime. It's really close, I know.
So, I mean, odds are probably more in your favor on that. There are some other scenarios where going for two is better. Surprisingly, I read something this weekend that if you're down 14 and score a touchdown, you're more likely to win by going for two, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you can just score twice and kick 2 extra points. But if you get that first one, then all you need is the touchdown and an extra point to win. And if you don't, well, it's so close to 50-50 that you'll probably maybe get it the second time and tie the game anyway. And then you get your overtime percentage back up to 50. So some different situations, but you're probably right. I just wanted to go for it because I didn't want to go to over. It's not that I didn't trust the team. It's just been playing a lot of Madden recently. Okay, I'm just gonna go for two in that scenario.
That's I think what some of the Madden players were saying that I have heard around the state is that our coach doesn't have any balls and this and that and just I just don't get it. Like, and then they were like, oh, well, why didn't he go for two earlier in the game? Really? Well, if you go for two earlier in the game and you don't get it, then you need the 2 point conversion just to send it to overtime. That doesn't make any sense.
That's true. But if you do get it, then the extra point wins the game. So I mean, it's
a lot of what ifs.
There is a lot of what ifs. But and then speaking of overtime, I don't know. Okay, so that coin flip.
Oh my gosh.
It didn't flip. As Colin said, it was just like a pizza pie, in the back where they're just tossing the crust around. Just kind of hovered there like a saucer. So and apparently Aaron Rodgers, it's 50-50. It still doesn't really matter. But he said that he likes to choose based on what coin direction it is. And the guy didn't let him repick, and he flipped the sides as to what, so instead he would have changed his call and they would have won the toss had the ref let him, but he didn't. I mean, but even still, it doesn't matter. It's still 50-50, obviously, unless there's some sort of weighted coin, which I think Clay Matthews or somebody hinted at, which I doubt that it did happen to fall on it 2 times in a row, but that's not totally impossible. So that was interesting. And I don't have any issue, though, with how that was handled. Do you? Because Green Bay lost both of them anyway.
I mean, I do have the issue that I guess if you're going to reflip it, I think the other team should. I think the team that is the away team or whoever is calling it should get an opportunity to recall it, in my opinion. That also brought me to, I think I sent it out on Twitter. I actually said I really like the NFL overtime. I'm not just saying this as an unhappy Packer fan. I'm saying this as just a fan in general. I think it should go to some sort of format where it's more like college. Maybe not starting the ball at so close to the end zone, but at the 50-yard line, or maybe not even that. Maybe at the opposing team's, 25 or something. I really think as highly regarded as the NFL treats quarterbacks, if they're your money makers, I think both teams' quarterbacks should get an opportunity to go on the field. That's my only gripe. I mean, yeah, obviously it happened in the Packer game, and I'm upset that Rodgers, who's our best player, doesn't get to touch the ball. But honestly, if any other game went to overtime, like when you get to the playoffs, I feel like the quarterback is such an important component, and if it comes down to that, I don't think I don't like how one team's quarterback, who's probably their best player, doesn't get an opportunity to even touch the ball.
Hey, that is fair. Yeah, I mean, obviously that puts all
the quarterback, like it's the bet. They're by far the most important player on the field. Like if they value them that much, both quarterbacks should get an opportunity. Though I do kind of like the. I mean, I'm not saying I completely hate the overtime rules. I'm just simply stating I kind of wish I had an opportunity to see both quarterbacks get it.
Right, and then obviously before they made the change a couple of years ago, where it was like if you get a field goal in overtime, it doesn't win the game anymore. It's just a tie, or you actually the other team gets the ball back. So it's a little bit closer to college in that sense. Obviously, a touchdown ends it because the most the other team could do theoretically would be tie it. Now, of course, with field goals being missed and some of that other stuff, extra points that is being missed, teams may be more likely to go for two because it's not as dangerous as it would be to kick. Actually, they're still at like 97%, but point average is the same. So I think you're right, that could be something that's maybe they want to look at. But of course, they've had that sort of problem in the past before. I think it's happened to Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and I'm not
Granted,
saying this is the first time it's happened either. I mean,
right,
obviously, it's definitely happened.
but when it happened to Peyton Manning, I think he lost on a field goal, and that's when they changed it to you have to score a touchdown now to end the game, and a field goal just gives the other team a chance. I think that was literally like the year after Manning lost, I think, a game in overtime.
Right.
They changed that rule. So, but yeah, I mean, it would be nice to get a fair shot. It would also be kind of interesting too to see how many times then, like if a team got the ball scored the second time, if they would go for two or just settle for the tie and then kick it off again to the other team.
It's true.
But that'd be kind of interesting. Other game. Oh, by the way, I think 2 Hail Marys in one season. That throw by Rodgers, I know it ended up being for nothing since they lost the game, but to be going that direction and to just throw it up, 50, was it like 50 yards in the air again, after having just completed a 60-yard bomb on 4th and 20.
Honestly,
to Janis.
There's only a handful of quarterbacks I can probably think of that can do that. Just because Bruce Arians did what you and me have said that teams should do in that situation, right? He brought pressure. He rushed the quarterback. And
I'm a fan of that.
It ended up backfiring because all of a sudden there's only 2 guys in the end zone with Janis, and I don't know what Patrick Peterson was doing. He just played it badly or something. But I mean, that's why I mean he did the right thing, I guess. Bring pressure like that. But Rodgers is just. That's what I mean. Like, there's like probably only a handful of quarterbacks that scrambling out can buy extra time and make that throw. Like, crazy, man.
Right, like you said, there's like the Tom Brady's.
Yeah, Tom Brady's not doing that.
Peyton Manning's definitely not Peyton. We can get to that Peyton play in a second because that's one of the games we'll talk about later. But yeah, those 2 guys aren't definitely doing it. I mean, Breeze probably isn't doing it.
I don't think Breeze. I think Luck could do it. I think Wilson could do it. I think Cam could do it. Carson Palmer definitely could not do it. Just saying that right now.
So yeah, that was a pretty miraculous play. Unfortunately, all for nothing as Green Bay did end up losing in overtime to Arizona. Then the next day, we started off the day. This was the first game, right? With that Seahawks Panthers game. And
first play, right? Well, at least first really play that I remember. Jonathan Stewart busting up the middle for what?
65 yards, 70 yards. Yeah. Interesting decision by Seattle because that first drive, those first 4 plays, Cam Chancellor did not start the game, and so they had a different safety start the game. I wonder if that would have made any difference at all on that play because if you go back and look at it, that safety kind of gets caught up behind like a block downfield, didn't fill the gap necessarily the way that you maybe would have hoped. So that was kind of interesting that Cam didn't start. I wonder what the reasoning behind that was. He definitely played just about every snap after that, those first 4. But yeah, then obviously Seattle's first possession, Luck throws the pick 6 to Kuechly under pressure. He was under pressure a lot, and then even running like the read option, every time he handed it off.
That guy's really good.
He is really good. His ability to like basically make the other like a left guard or right guard's hands essentially useless because he can just swat them like he was strong enough to just get them off. And obviously, if you can't use your hands as the guy you're blocking, you're not doing your job. So
kind of reminded me of Aaron Donald-esque, like just undersized tackle, or Mike Daniels, someone that's undersized but quick and able to get penetration right away. And just he was in Russell Wilson's face consistently.
Yeah, that offensive line had a rough day. Starting off, Seattle's defense obviously right away had a rough go of it. And a minute into the second quarter, it was already 21-0.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, it would look like it was just, gonna be over. Like, I mean, I thought. I mean, I've seen Seattle come back. I've experienced it firsthand, but I thought, man, there's no way. Like, that's even 2 points for someone like Dom Capers to blow. Like, it's just there's no way. That's what I was thinking.
Right, and then at halftime it's 31-0. That offense, for Carolina is humming along. Nothing's really going right. Okay, not nothing. Those last two possessions for Seattle went mostly right. They ended up going for it on 4th down, didn't get it, and then at the end they tried a field goal.
Field goal range for the 4th down one. They go for it and they don't get it. And then at the end of the half, a much longer field goal. I think it was like 50-some yards. They tried it, didn't get it. And it's just like, well, if you're going to try the long field goal, why didn't you just take the 3 points before?
It was that was definitely an arguable decision. Me and Ryan were both on the side of you kick the field goal there. Yes. Get something, because you're down 31. I mean, you're going to need a field goal at some point, and
unless you plan on going for 3 touchdowns in or something.
Right. So, and hoping you get all 3 of them.
Yeah, and then assuming you get all 3.
Yeah, and that's like a 10% chance of happening. So it was an interesting decision. I mean, the dude I don't think he had missed a field goal in a while. And that was actually only the second missed field goal of the entire playoffs, obviously, other than the one that gave them that position to be in the divisional round after Blair Walsh missed his field goal. So for all of playoffs, that's the only 2 missed field goals to that point. 31-0 at halftime, think the game's over. And then, Seattle starts doing their Seattle-type things, Russ doing Russ things. And they actually made a pretty good game of it. It just came down to the onside kick, which Thomas Davis, the linebacker, is on the hands team, made a hell of a play because he got his legs taken out from under him too. I probably would have thrown the ball or cried or whatever, but he made the game-saving onside kick.
I just point out one thing. I just got to point out one thing. If he would have taken the 3 points instead in the first half, you wouldn't have had to kick the field goal and then try to get the onside kick. You could have went for it on 4th down and, tried to score the touchdown to tie the game.
Exactly. Yep.
Throwing it out there, Pete Carroll, and all of your coaching genius. I don't want to ever hear Packer fans cry about how McCarthy manages the game. Because I don't know, Pete Carroll, I would just be, this is not the first playoff game this guy has done something like this.
And you are definitely correct, right? I mean, if they kick that field goal, they're down 7 that last drive instead of 10.
Doesn't make any sense.
And yeah, I mean, because like we said, you're going to need a field goal at some point. So they took their field goal in the 4th quarter with like 40 seconds left instead of with 40 seconds left or no time left there in the first half. And that definitely had an outcome or affected the outcome negatively for Seattle with their chances. Because
I thought Wilson played good though. I mean, minus the first, obviously drive. Giving a pick 6 to the other team isn't great, but I mean he was under pressure. I thought he got his team to come back really good, and
they held them scoreless. I mean, the defense did their job for the most part there in the second half.
What happened to Riverboat Rivera or whatever his name is? He was just more like conservative guy or something. Because just what are they doing on offense the whole second half?
That's a good question. I mean, outside of that 60-yard run to begin, I mean, Stewart didn't have a lot. I know they did a couple of intentional runs with Cam that didn't really go very far. The reverse to Teddy Ginn was nice, but it was like they were conservative, being up 31. As Cam said after the game, everyone was playing with their butts a little tight. Fans had their butts tight, players, coaches, everyone with their butts tight. So, but when they needed to make a play, just to pick up first, that's really, just keep milking that clock, I guess, is almost probably the thought process there. And I don't know what their 3rd down conversion rate was. I'm going to see if I could find this real quick. But it seemed like they got like all of them. And like anytime they needed it, there was almost no pass rush whatsoever. At least that's what it felt like as somebody actively rooting, I guess, for Seattle, is when they needed it, they couldn't get any pressure on Cam.
I got to say, though, Cam Newton's really turned into a really good quarterback. Like, there was that throw he made to Greg Olsen for a touchdown was sick. I don't even know how, he's kind of got a am I the only one that thinks he's kind of got a quirky throwing motion a little bit? But the ball just launches off of his hand. I mean, he just zings it, and I'm telling you that throw he made to Greg Olson, it was like all or nothing. Like either Olson's gonna be able to extend out and catch it, or it's just gonna hit the wall in the back of the end
zone. Maybe somebody gets a souvenir, which they did get because Cam gave out the souvenir obviously after the play anyway. So, he's definitely, I think, improved. He's going to be the league MVP, which I think like 5 weeks in, 6 weeks in, I didn't think that would be the case, but that obviously is probably the case now.
They could be the first team in a while to have both the league MVP and league defensive MVP on the same team.
Yeah, that would be an interesting race because, I mean, Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, Luke Kuechly. Man, okay, that play that Luke Kuechly made on the sideline and the corner route, there's probably not any linebacker, middle linebacker, outside linebacker, anywhere else in the league that's really going to make that play to chase it down and then knock it out of the hands of, I think it was Lockett, but I could be wrong. That was absolutely incredible. And then afterwards, he was yelling at the corner because the corner didn't drop back far enough. He's like,
that's like you or me playing Madden where we're like, okay, I can't be responsible for you and myself, so I'm going to run over and make the play, and then I'm going to be upset at you.
That's basically what it was. I mean, the dude, I think there's a reason. There's obviously a reason I think he won the Pro Football Focus's top graded coverage person in all of the league, regardless of position, corner, safety, linebackers. They had the highest coverage grade. And that play just kind of exemplified everything that he is and can do in the passing game. It was incredible. I wasn't even mad about it. I was just like, damn, that's a good play. Just like, okay.
But it is. If you're Troy Aikman, he said that Russell Wilson needs to throw it to him earlier. That's what he said on air. I'm just saying.
No, maybe he could have. There was a little bit of loft in there too. I think like most quarterbacks, it was like, okay, I know this is going to be open based on coverage and what I see from that corner. Just get it there and just let him make the catch. But because he's not really going to run up the field on that route anyway, it's just get it there. But Luke made an amazing play, and that I don't even have other words for it. It was incredible. And yeah, Panthers ended up winning, like I said, 31-24. Despite that was the biggest, by the way, I think like most points scored or like holding a team scoreless in the second half and scoring points and still losing the game in like playoff history for Seattle. Just don't get down 31, and that doesn't have to happen to you. And then we had the nightcap there, which was the afternoon game, Pitt versus Denver, with Denver pulling that one out.
I actually wanted Pittsburgh to win this game. Even without Antonio Brown, I mean, I was still thinking, it kind of looked like, they're just, I mean, they're moving the ball, I thought, decently against the Denver defense. They did have ultimately the big deciding factor was that fumble that from the third string running back. That was really the backbreaker in that game. I know. Yeah, I think you pointed out you had sent a tweet about the butterfingers that the Denver receivers were having, and dude, man, I'd have butterfingers too if every ball Peyton Manning threw me I thought I was gonna get crushed on.
Well, to be fair, some of those definitely should. I'm not saying his passes obviously had any sort of velocity or anything like that,
and they weren't even spirals.
Oh, but we've been making fun of Peyton Manning and his lack of spirals for years, man.
Yeah, but now they don't even get to where they need to get to on time.
Yeah, but I think there were like 5 drops in the first half in that game.
Oh, it was bad. No question.
It was pretty bad. Also, I mean, Martavis Bryant also has his fair share of drops for Pitt. It's interesting, though, you're looking at the game, you're like, oh, I think Pittsburgh moved the ball pretty well. Well, let's see, Roethlisberger and Manning both threw the ball the same number of times. Roethlisberger had 117 more yards on the same number of attempts. So definitely, like on a per-play basis, Pitt was rolling. But you're right. He threw for 339 yards, Roethlisberger did. 0 touchdowns. Didn't get in the end zone 1 time. That's honestly pretty incredible.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, I mean, it's like I said, the one turnover was the biggest difference in that game. I just, I guess the reason I thought I wanted Pittsburgh to win, I thought Pittsburgh's defense showed up. For a defense that hadn't played probably the greatest throughout the whole season, I thought they played good enough to give their team a chance to win. Obviously, Denver's defense is elite, and we got ourselves a fun showdown. I think this weekend, in both games actually.
Definitely. I mean, now you've got New England, Denver. The Brady Manning for like the 100th time. They're getting to meet up. I think this is actually like the fourth time to go to the Super Bowl. Winner gets to go, which is pretty incredible on one side. And we mentioned it before, I believe. The AFC has been those three guys that we've talked about: is Manning, Roethlisberger, and Brady. And that's pretty much, there was 1 year of Joe Flacco sprinkled in the Super Bowl miraculously, because all he did was throw bombs to Anquan Bolden, who would just catch everything. But I mean, that's an incredible run for like the AFC. Most teams over there have to be glad that Manning is old as hell, and Brady seems to be getting there, but he hasn't shown any signs of it yet. And then, NFC, you've got Cam Newton, league MVP, and then Carson Palmer, who finally just picked up his first playoff victory.
Please stop saying he's the league MVP. You're just trying to jinx him because you don't like him. Damn it, Brett.
He's gonna win it. I'm not even jinxing him. I'm just saying I think that's the case. The only other person I think of would be Carson Palmer. Tom Brady probably too, given his injuries. But I mean, those are the three. But Cam Newton's gonna win it, and I'm not saying that to jinx him. I'm just saying I think he's going to win it.
Looking at those matchups, I just realized it's unbelievable. It's the 1 and 2 seeds on both sides, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Let's see. Well, I'm just gonna say what I'm predicting right now. I think the Panthers will be playing the New England Patriots in a rematch of Super Bowl something, because I don't know what year that was.
2003, right?
Except this time, I hope Carolina wins.
I also have New England. This NFC game for me is too tough to call. I don't anticipate Carson playing that poorly. I mean, he hadn't really played that bad, I guess, for most of the year.
So you're picking the Patriots, and
I'm going to go with Arizona.
Picking the Patriots versus the Cardinals. That would also be a fun matchup. Neither one of us have faith in Denver.
I think I lied. It's the
Neither one of us have faith in Peyton Manning.
There we go. Right. Because, like I said, the quarterback spot.
In fact, if you think about it, of all of the 4 quarterbacks that are left, I would take any of the 3 long before I took Manning.
Manning is definitely the 4th ranked quarterback out of the 4 remaining, and it's not even close. Like I said, those other 3, the only 3 MVP candidates that I can think of in the league, and then there's Manning, who is a shell of his MVP former self. I do think that the defense for Denver can keep them in it, much like they had to do most of the season. Especially, up front, if they can get pressure, because Tom's not a mobile guy. They make quick decisions. He gets the ball out of his hand, I think, faster than just about anybody else in the league. But at the same time, they can get pressure, Denver can, and they've got really good secondary. So it'll be interesting to see what the score of that game ends up being. It probably won't be high scoring. But yeah, I just don't trust that offense to make enough plays for Denver.
The sad thing about it is, I'm just going to say this right now. So 1, I think a big factor is that it's in Denver and not in Foxborough. 2, I truly believe this. I really think Denver would have a better chance winning that game if they started Brock Osweiler. Just my opinion. I really think they would have a better chance to win it. I already know, guarantee you, Peyton Manning flutters at least 1 ball that gets picked off, and it's going to end up really hurting the Denver Broncos.
That's an interesting take. I feel like we both said that kind of in the middle of the year, just to stick with Osweiler. But if you watch some of the games too down the stretch there, Osweiler also wasn't that impressive, and I think his contract's coming up. I'm kind of intrigued to see what Denver does with that
You
quarterback
know,
spot.
I agree with you. He didn't play great in some games, but I think to take advantage of the players that they have on that offense in terms of like, I mean, look at how much the ground game sucks when Peyton Manning is constantly operating out of the shotgun and Kubiak can't run his stretch, run zone offense and whatnot. And you look at how they beat the Patriots the first go round. I think he gives you a better opportunity, but I mean, we'll see. I guess we'll get one more matchup of Brady versus Peyton, and on the other side, I mean, Carolina and the Cardinals is also a really interesting matchup. Now, this isn't the same team from last year that the Carolina beat. Okay, I mean, Carson Palmer is playing this year.
Which does make a big difference. Who was it last year? Was it like Drew Stanton?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, huge difference. I like Arizona's ability to get down the field. Even on some of those, obviously in the Green Bay game, those bad interceptions or some of those bad throws happened like in the red zone or the end zone with the one pick and then the one Sam Shields should have had. But they obviously they were able to move the ball a decent amount for a lot of that game.
It's a fun matchup, man. It
is fun
matchup.
I like, man. Just Larry Fitzgerald is probably one of my favorite dudes in the league, just like as an overall kind of guy.
Well, you're going to be very sad when he doesn't get an opportunity to play in the Super Bowl.
He's had one opportunity, and they blew it with your boy Kurt Warner.
Oh yeah. No, Brett, that was a ridiculous Super Bowl. It came right down to the end.
That catch was amazing. That throwing catch
was crazy. Anyways, though, I don't know, man. If Palmer plays as bad as he did against the Packers, they won't win. They won't. There's not a chance.
And you mentioned it too when we were watching the Carolina-Seattle game. Is you feel like Carolina kind of took their foot off the pedal a little bit and got conservative. If that were to happen, like let's say they somehow managed to get up, 20 points on Arizona. If they got conservative with Arizona, that offense is good. As much as I love Russ, obviously Arizona's offense is more explosive, and that's definitely not something that you can have. I don't even see that happening in the first place, by the way. But
you know where I think this game's going to be won or lost? It's going to be in the trenches. If Carolina's defensive line gets the kind of pressure that they got on Russell Wilson, on Carson Palmer, who can't run around and extend plays, I don't know, man. That's going to be really hard on them.
Especially because they do a downfield passing game. Like they're just going to need some time for those routes and for his guys to get open, I think, a little bit more. Though Seattle does do a lot of their fair share of downfield passing as well.
They do. And I mean, on the other side of it, I think Carolina wants to run the ball, and if they establish, the line of scrimmage with, their offensive line and whatnot and have their way in the trenches there, I mean, that's another way that they're going to keep Palmer off the field and keep keep drives alive, as you mentioned. And it's so weird because for some reason, I just don't think of like Carolina having like really explosive players, but they put up plenty of points.
Teddy Ginn and Greg Olsen are probably like,
yeah, I mean, it's true
as far as like explosive in the air sort of passing. I mean, Kotri even had a couple catches this last week, which I hadn't heard his name in a while. So, I don't know, man. It's not what I necessarily want. Obviously, I think it would be kind of interesting, like you said, with Peyton to go out on top. It's not going to happen there, so I'm just going to stick with the Pats. And then with the other game, I don't know. I just have a feeling for Arizona. In our Pick'em League, I haven't gotten any of these wrong yet. I think on air last week I said I'd take Seattle, but I don't remember if I said that or not.
Yes, you did. And I swear, Brett,
You said
If you get him
to be
already,
fair, I picked with my heart in that one, and I said that. I knew in my head, which is what I was playing with in our fantasy, go with the head, not the heart. So I haven't gotten any wrong yet, but I'm going to go with Arizona and the Pats. I'm going to stick with that.
Arizona and the Pats. I tell you, I will say this: if Arizona ends up playing the Patriots, I will be rooting for Arizona. If Carolina is playing the Patriots, I will root for Carolina. And if it's for some reason somehow Denver does win, well, shoot. I don't know who I want to win if it's Arizona. I haven't decided that one. But if it's Carolina, I want Carolina to win. I'm all in Carolina, baby.
You just want a team from the NFC to win, probably, right?
Kind of. I don't know. I've liked Cam Newton at every level. So he's won a championship at junior college. He's won one at the Division I college. Now he can win a Super Bowl. Oh man.
I wonder how many people have ever done that. Probably none.
Probably hardly any. Yeah. And it's kind of weird because in all the history of the Heisman Trophy, this is the first ever playoff game where two Heisman Trophy quarterbacks are playing against each other. That's kind of cool.
It's pretty cool. We were thinking for a while too, we're like, how can that possibly be? But if you think about it, how many quarterbacks have won the Heisman and just been awful?
But said the Heisman Trophy itself is almost more of a jinx, and like you don't want to win it.
Pretty much, it's kind of seemed that way. And for a while there, after Palmer's injury, you could have almost counted him out when he tore his ACL with Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's true. So with that said, I mean, the last little bit I want to touch on before we end today's podcast, all of these coaching hires have happened. I gotta know your thoughts on a couple of them. You touched on the Philly job. I gotta know what you think of Chip Kelly in San Francisco as well.
Well, that's interesting because everyone in that remembers, obviously the type of offense that Chip ran in college. Always had like a really athletic, mobile quarterback. And you're like, well, now he's got that in Kaepernick. But I don't. Is Cap going to even win that job still, or does he try to go after someone else in the draft? I mean, it's interesting because Cap has struggled so much recently, and he doesn't have all the power there in San Francisco, right? Like he was trying to get in Philly.
No, actually, okay, I'll be straight up. I'm kind of biased. I am a big Chip Kelly fan. I like coaches that bring new ideas and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I kind of think his ideas are fun. The way he envisions offense and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, obviously in Philly, it didn't work out good. Didn't take him long, one, to get a job. Two, he's making. Did you see his contract?
Mm-mm.
Dude, 4 years, like $24 million. Making like $6 million like a season. First off, and then
for a coach that got fired at his old job,
yes.
That's not bad.
Now, and the other thing is, he actually said in his press conference that take whatever you want to take it, but Trent Baalke, who's the GM, he said, I'm glad that guy's a GM. I'm gonna let him do his thing. I'm gonna do my thing. It's pretty much what he said. So, take it whatever you want, but he at least said the right thing. That he's gonna worry more about coaching and that kind of stuff. Honestly, I think if anyone can revive Colin Kaepernick, I think it's this guy. I think he made mediocre quarterbacks in Philly actually produce pretty good numbers. I think Colin Kaepernick still got a world of talent. It's just, some other offensive coordinator by the name of Jeep Chris decided he was going to make him a pocket passer and not allow him to, do what he does best and, run around and do those kind of things. So honestly, I'm super excited to see what it looks like. And I think if I was a big 49ers fan, I would buy in because, well, you don't really have much choice, but might as well try to look at the positives instead of just focusing on what a mess he left Philly. Just my
It's
opinion.
interesting that you mentioned buying in because I think it was LaShawn McCoy had advice for the players in San Francisco, and his advice was simply that: buy in regardless of how crazy it sounds. Just do what he says because you can have some success in that offense. And I mean, they did that first year until obviously he got rid of all the good players and brought in players that didn't necessarily fit, which is kind of weird. But I mean, you can like you mentioned, it's different, it's a little bit unique, he's got a different style, and not everyone necessarily buys into it, but I think if they can, I think that offense could be good. He's also a 3-4 defensive kind of guy, so he's going to a team that already has the 3-4 personnel, so he doesn't really have to mess around with the defense at all. I mean, it's not a horrible fit. I'm actually just interested to see if Kaepernick can win the job.
Yeah, I mean, there is always the possibility that maybe he brings in, like you mentioned, either through the draft, RG3 will be available, who everyone will laugh at. But you know what? I think that would also be a fun fit. Or maybe even Johnny Manziel, who actually, believe it or not, was recruited to Oregon and he had a scholarship. And at the last moment, Texas A&M decided to change their mind and offer him a scholarship, and he wanted to stay close to home, so that's why he ended up going there instead of Oregon.
And that is an interesting connection because I think a lot of players, or a lot of coaches rather, like to bring in players that they're familiar with. So obviously Chip has that sort of connection. And he knows that he would be able to run that offense because he's definitely not going to be in Cleveland anymore. His new head coach there, Hugh Jackson, has already said that if they view a quarterback worthy being drafted at their spot in the first round, that they're going to end up taking a quarterback, which for Cleveland just means it's another rebuilding and starting over sort of project.
I think we both said that we like Jackson. So
yeah, he's a good coach, and he deserves a chance there to be a head coach. It's just in general, Cleveland just irritates me. I mean, they fired their coach after was he there for like a year or 2 years, whatever it was. Not enough time. And not enough time, honestly, to do anything for that team. They haven't really been that good since they came back after initially moving to Baltimore. So even when a guy like Joe Thomas is at least even actively saying, maybe he'll be somewhere else, maybe you're doing it wrong.
That's a good point. So with that said, I mean, any last thoughts?
No, not really. I guess just interest when we'll get into the NBA stuff, right? We got this week, and then we'll have about 2 weeks off after this because the Super Bowl is going to be 2 weeks away from this weekend because they got the Pro Bowl in between, right?
It's true, yeah. And we're not going to talk about the Pro Bowl.
Nobody wants to talk about the Pro Bowl, which Aaron Rodgers, by the way, is missing for an undisclosed injury. He probably just doesn't care to go.
I think a lot of players, once you've been I guess you get a trip to Hawaii, but
I think they can afford a trip to Hawaii on their own anyway.
Yeah, I think, it's probably a cool experience when you're a younger guy. But once you've been there, done that kind of thing, it's like, meh.
But yeah, I don't have anything else really to add to this week's edition of the Brett Matt Show. Do you have anything?
Nope, that's about it. But yeah, I mean, the NFL is going to end here soon, and then we're going to be on to basketball. So, should be some fun for that.
Every week should just be talk about Golden State and the Spurs, and that's about it.
But I am not ready to start talking about Steph Curry and the stupid Golden State Warriors and Dub Nation. Go Spurs, go!
Hey, I'm down with that too. Either one of those teams, as long as it's not a team from the East, unless it's the Bucks.
It's not gonna be anyone, dude. The East is trash. They're awful.
Fact, and we will talk about that.
We'll talk about that, some other show. But thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys next week.